Hello and welcome to another episode of the Advance Team. I'm Lance Dutson. Thanks a lot for joining us. Let's meet this week's panel. First-time Advance Team panelists, we have former Republican State Representative Jonathan McKane, also known as the real John McCain. We've got Democratic Communications Mastermind Lizzy Reinholt. You like that, Ben Grant? We have from the Maine State Chamber, Ben Gilman, and former chair of the Maine Democratic Party and all-around great guy, Ben Grant. Thanks a lot for joining us, everybody. The big news in Augusta right now, starting at the end of last week, is the apparent schism that is growing between the Senate Republicans and the administration based on Governor LePage's proposed tax reform or tax shift or tax expansion, or whatever you want to call it, that's contained in his budget. Ben Gilman, I want to start with you. This is something that's been simmering under the surface for a while. Last week, Senate President Thibodeau and Senate Majority Leader Garrett Mason put out a fairly curt statement expressing their concern with some of the governor's statements, such as, if you don't support my budget, you're not a real Republican, and if you vote against my budget, I'll spend the rest of my days hunting you down. This has got to be the buzz in the halls of the State House, right? I mean, is this what everybody's talking about up there?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily the buzz of the State House. I think people are starting to see the budget process take hold. The Appropriations Committee is starting to dig in deeper in it, and I think this was just natural, was going to occur in terms of conversations of where the governor's budget, where some people stand on it, where some people don't. So I haven't heard a lot of buzz in the State House. I think most people, like Appropriations today, spent all day working through the education portion of the budget. They're really getting down in the details, and they're going to spend the next month on it. So I think this is a small blip on the radar at the end of the day.
Ben Grant, what do you think? Just a little bump on the road for the team here?
No, there's nothing natural about the governor of Maine going around indiscriminately threatening anybody who won't support his plan. There's nothing natural about the leaders of his party in the legislature coming forward and having to answer the charges. So I think this spells a lot of trouble for the governor. If he can't keep his own people in line, then there's not much chance he's going to get support across the aisle, which is what he needs to pass anything.
John McCain, what do you think? I mean, you've seen, when you were in the State House, you saw a lot of, especially in the 125th, you saw behind-the-scenes acrimony on some budget issues. But do you remember seeing this wide open a schism between Republican leaders and the governor?
No, not quite like this. And when I tried to pass a bill, or when I watched others try to get a bill to pass, we usually try to do it on the merits of the bill, and rather than this kind of this intimidation that it's trying to be. What's fascinating though is it's this debate, how similar it is on the actual policy to 2009-2010. But the fascinating part is that it's not between Republicans and Democrats as it was back then. It's within the Republican Party, and I think we can safely assume that the Republicans are going to win this one. But I don't think this looks like a real tough uphill climb for the governor now after this past week. I think tax expansion and tax increase is dead in this budget. Probably because of that, any changes in tax policy might be dead. But I don't think it looks good for the governor at this point as far as the tax reform.
So, Lizzy, what do you think? Is this just another signal to Democrats just to sit on their hands and let Republicans just fight this out and kill this budget themselves?
Well, no matter what, there's going to have to be a budget passed. And I think that there is an opportunity for Democrats to stand up and take a leadership role and say, okay, if folks can't get behind this plan, here's another one, and try to really be the folks who can step up to the leadership role and demonstrate their ability to craft a compromise with the Republicans. I mean, it's not the first time that Democrats and Republicans in the legislature will get up and do the governor's job, craft a budget, and actually pass it without any of his support. We've seen it happen throughout his entire time as governor. I mean, he vetoed the biennial budget, the last biennial budget that was overridden. he wanted no part in helping with the supplemental. So, you know, I think it's great to see the Republicans stepping out and speaking against this. I think the voices against this budget are growing even more, and hopefully this means that we can, you know, toss it out and start fresh with us and new ideas and have Democrats, Republicans work together on it.
Ben Gilman.
Hey, Lance, can I just come back? I mean, look at the governor's track record. In the past 4 years, legislative sessions, this is his style, but at the end of the day, who usually comes out on top policy-wise? It's usually the governor. And don't count him out. At the end of the day, I predict we will pass a budget with a lower income tax rate in it. That's his ultimate goal in this budget process, and you will see a income tax reduction in this budget. That's my prediction. You can look at other issues in the past, his track record, how they have gone. People have counted him out time and time again, and in the end, he usually does pass the policy he's seeking.
Well, I love about this budget, which is one of the most complicated proposals we've ever seen, that increases the sales tax and broadens it, has now been broken down to it's an income tax cut. It's a lot more than that, and to have his own party speak out against it shows just how out of touch he is with his own party's ideas and the ideas that people have made.
But at the very least, it does bring the issue of income tax back to the front, and it's very important that we do that. We've got very high income taxes here in Maine, and it does inhibit growth. It keeps people from moving here, so that at the very least, that is going to be a long-term win. If there's any reduction in the income tax without an expansion, Republicans will dive all over that without an expansion of the sales tax.
I think, if I could jump in, I think we have an opportunity right now to have a real discussion about whether John's right. I don't think the evidence is out there that reducing the top rate of the income tax is going to result in the sort of economic growth that the conservatives like to talk about. I'm hoping that's part of the discussion going forward over the next few months.
Well, I mean, one thing we do know, right, from history is that increasing taxes doesn't help. I mean, we've been doing that steadily since 1972 or whatever. I mean,
that's
well, and clearly the income tax cut of 2011 didn't help either, considering the fact that we're 49th in the country when it comes to our economy, right in front of Mississippi. Thank God for Mississippi keeping us from 50th.
Now, what was that cut? 0.5%?
Yeah, exactly. You know, as somebody who has used the term largest tax cut in Maine history over and over again, I can tell you that it was the largest tax cut in Maine history, but it was a very, very minor tax cut. I mean, that was, and I think that's one of the things Republicans really failed on, is that when they had the whole government under their control, that's as bold as they got. Now the governor's getting very bold without that kind of control. But anyway, Ben Grant, I want to ask you this question. I mean, we know how this budget process works, and I think we're all judging it based on, well, will the governor get the whole package? Will he get this major thing done? I mean, budgets start as bargaining chips, don't they? And we've seen, as Ben Gilman mentioned, the governor's track record on his issues is very strong. I mean, are we just seeing some kind of political theater up there, and at the end of the day, you know, he's going to get the changes he wants and walk away a hero like he's done before?
I don't think so. I think what he's proposed here is a bird of a different feather compared to the rest of his record. I mean, his previous 4 years have been all about pushing almost 100% conservative agenda, and what he's done here is very different. He's proposed a mixed bag of tax increases and tax cuts.
A moderate proposal?
Yeah, it is. It, frankly, it's more moderate than he's been, but you know that's a pretty low bar to clear.
Okay, well, let's move away from this subject now. We're going to go to our wins and fails of the week. Lizzy, I'm going to start with you. Who is your winner of this past week in Maine politics?
My winner was Ben Chin, who announced his candidacy for mayor of Lewiston. He gave a really incredible speech when he launched. You know, he was unapologetic. He was very clear on where he stood on issues and very clear on what he wanted to focus on in Maine. And it's really the type of progressive voice and the type of voice that I know Democrats should feel very lucky to have out there right now, especially coming from a young emerging leader who clearly, you know, made a difference and clearly is gonna be a contender in that mayor's race.
John McKane, who's your win of the week?
I've got a couple of them, but Republican leadership in the Senate for kind of staying where they've been all along and not moving. Mike Thibodeau and Garrett Mason worked against tax reform in 2009, 2010, and they're just staying where they are, and they're not being pushed into going along with something that they don't feel really good about. And I also think Mainers who sprung ahead this week and are now in the right time zone. Thanks.
Ben Grant, who's your win of the week?
Well, I both appreciate the Benchin announcement and Mike Thibodeau making his stand. But I'll go with a broader category. Just overall, people in Maine who don't want to see the governor's tax package passed, I think, had a very good week. You saw Peggy Rotundo make a strong statement about some changes in DHHS that a lot of people aren't going to like. Then you had on the right the Republican leaders explain some of their problems with what's going on. It looks like it's going to generate some bipartisan opposition, and that will probably lead to its defeat.
Ben Gilman, who's your win of the week?
My win of the week is a former governor of Maryland, Martin O'Malley. He jumps to the front of the pack of Democratic presidential nominations in light of the Hillary Clinton email scandal as that unfolds. And just last week, he was over in neighboring New Hampshire campaigning. So he's my win of the week.
So I'm going to be unoriginal in my win of the week, and I'm going to trumpet what Lizzie and Ben said about Ben Chin, the Maine People's Alliance operative, or what I think he's an operative, field operative that's running for mayor in Lewiston against Bob McDonnell. And not because of his speech, which was very good, and his populist stance and all that stuff, but because he used my name in one of his fundraising emails. I think that gives him definitely the win of the week. And also to trumpet what you guys have said about Senate Republican leadership, one of the things I think is important, both Mike Thibodeau and Garrett Mason came out with some pretty firm statements about core Republican principles of reducing taxes overall. I think what they did was good because Republicans need to have this debate out in the open and get it done with before the session gets to the end, so Peggy Rotundo doesn't end up writing this budget. I think that's an important step, and I don't think it's a bad thing for Republicans. I think it's a good part of the process that's moving forward. All right, the fun part, the fails of the week. Lizzie, who's your fail of the week?
My fail of the week are all the senators who are now in the doghouse. I have them in a list in size 20 font who voted to kill the bill that would have made the Labrador Retriever the state dog. In all seriousness, I get that people sometimes think those bills are ridiculous, but honestly, I think it got people involved. You saw on Facebook there were folks who were engaging on that issue in ways that who don't usually engage in politics. And I think if there's a bill that can get people involved and get people engaging and get people paying attention to the political process, that's something to celebrate. But in addition, the excuse for not wanting the bill was a little lame. It was that we shouldn't be picking and choosing favorites. I mean, we have a state treat. We have another bill, state sweetener. Labrador Retrievers aren't going to be offended and hate you for life if you want to say that you'd rather be the border collie or that you don't think it raises to the occasion. Just give them a treat and they're going to love you. So, that's my feeling.
All right, John McKane, who's your fail of the week?
My fail of the week is Maine Congresswoman Chellie Pingree for what I feel was profound disrespect by not showing up at the speech in Congress by Benjamin Netanyahu, who's one of our oldest and biggest allies, certainly in the Middle East. And it seemed petty and partisan, and I thought it put politics before people. I don't think the people of her district appreciated it.
Ben Grant, who's your fail of the week?
Well, I'm also going to turn my eye toward Washington, and I'm going to single out the members of the Republican caucus in the U.S. Senate who sent what I think is an appalling and unprecedented letter to the leaders of Iran trying to undermine the sitting president's attempts at negotiating a compromise with them on their nuclear program. I think we've opened a new sad chapter in the history of relations between Congress and the White House with that act.
All right, Ben Gilman, your fail of the week.
My fail of the week, I'm going to stay in Washington and go with Democratic Senator Menendez from New Jersey, who's facing corruption charges by the Department of Justice and pending indictment. It's a sad day when you see U.S. senators facing corruption charges.
Wow, a lot of problems, scandals out there for Democrats these days. It's getting rough. My fail of the week. My fail of the week, and maybe this isn't the week, maybe I'm a little dated, but I've got to say Portland Mayor Michael Brennan. I think Mayor Brennan had an opportunity with this homeless shelter dust-up with the LePage administration to stand up for the homeless community of Maine and stand up against Governor LePage, who obviously is not the most well-liked person in Portland. But instead, he waited something like 4 days to respond to this scandal. He had a very weak pushback against it, and I think he opens the door to potential opposition within his own party for that mayor's race that's starting to take form. I think if you look at the example of someone like Ben Chin, who went to Lewiston and swung for the fences and got a lot of positive feedback for that, I think Michael Brennan could take a populist page from Ben Chin. All right, so let's go, before we wind up here, let's go around the horn, and what are you guys looking for this week in Maine politics? Start with you, Lizzy.
I am really looking forward to another fundraising email for Ben Chin, quoting you once again for giving him the win.
All right.
My top thing I'm looking forward to.
John McKane, what are we looking for this week?
I'm not sure if the debate on the cell phones will hit the Senate floor. It'd be great if it did. It'll be a lot of fun. I don't think that bill will pass, and we can look forward to lots of talk about marijuana.
All right. Ben Grant, what are you looking for this week?
I'm looking forward to a Democratic victory in the special election tomorrow in Rockland. Ann Beebe Fenner is a fine woman, and you know, in 2 cycles ago, it was really the canary in the coal mine when we started winning special elections and leading up to the general election. I look forward to that, putting that in the Democratic column tomorrow.
Boy, I think that's a tough call. I've seen Republican field movement on that thing, and I think that's going to be a tough uphill battle for Democrats. Ben Gilman, what are you looking for this week?
Ben Grant just stole my looking for this week is a special election down in Rockland. I think that's going to tell us a lot in terms of what's going on in Augusta, and one party or the other is going to claim victory and claim that will help their agenda in Augusta. But it was a close race last November. It will probably be a close race tomorrow, and it will be interesting to see how it impacts Augusta.
All right, well, thanks to everyone for joining us here today. Lizzy Reinholt, John McKane, Ben Grant, and Ben Gilman. I'm Lance Dutson for the Advance team. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.